Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are absolutely thrilled that you joined us tonight. I am Terry Kay of the Jewish Grandparents Network. Thank you so much for coming to how play with grandchildren can bring out the sweetness of the high holidays. We are thrilled that our presenter tonight is Sari Kopitnikoff. Our plan is as follows. From now until shortly before 8 o'clock, together we'll share ideas for grandparents. And we're also very excited to welcome professionals who work with grandparents, whom we have invited to stay on for a half-hour talk back from 8 to 8:30 p.m. Sari will take questions throughout, so please use the chat freely, put your questions there, raise your Zoom hand, and we welcome your active participation. May I offer a big thank you to Sarah Reed, our JGN colleague, who is helping facilitate. And Sarah has shared or will share, yes, has shared with us in chat how to turn on captions for those who wish to use that feature. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Sari Kopitnikoff, who is an experiential educator, a digital artist, and a content creator. I personally have used Sari's content with my own grandchild who's 10 years old. We learned Jewish together on Zoom. Sari is passionate about creating books, games, activities, mystery challenges, and shows that bring Judaism to life. For over a decade, she taught elementary through high school, and she now runs programs and experiences for kids, teens, and adults. While Sari is presenting, facilitating, we will put links in chat to Sari's website and her social media account handle. So over to you, Sari, with all our thanks for leading us tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Terry, for inviting me. There are very few things I would rather be doing. Maybe eating ice cream or seeing the Swiss Alps. There are very few things I would rather be doing than sharing my passion for play. So I'm so thrilled to be here with you tonight. And I'd love to start out with a little challenge for you. And my question is, think about what might be some of the benefits of using play to interact with your grandkids. And I'd love for you to answer in the chat, but there's a rule. Your answer should be exactly 6 words, no more, no less. So in the chat, after you've counted out your words, what are some benefits to playing with your grandkids? Play is natural for children. Shar, so close. We need one more. Maybe play is very natural for children. Thanks for being our first to share. Let's see some more when you have them. Sharing joy, curiosity, discovery, our closeness. Positive associations with Judaism. We need 2 more words. Great start. Brings the content to their level. Joy, imagination, engagement, works across ages. These are so good. Maybe we'll take a few more and then I'll share some that I have. Mental stimulation that keeps you young. Yes. They see me as their friend. These are great. So I'll share a few that I have on my list. Keep them coming. I'm very inspired by your answers. Play captures children's interest and attention. Or play makes interactions and learning memorable. We're trying to create these long-lasting memories. What better way to do it with play? Play encourages creativity and problem solving. And maybe an important one for the scientists among us, science shows it's good for us. So now that we have that intro behind us, and I also want to make a little asterisk and encourage you to use that as an activity, connecting with your grandchildren. Ask them a question and tell them how many words they should have their answer in. And it really encourages us to not just say what comes to our mind, but to really think it through and almost play with it. So I personally have been playing since I was a fetus, maybe a little after, and I never got the memo that I should stop. So I've been playing my whole life. When I was a preteen, I started babysitting, and I used to create these fully immersive magical worlds, and the parents afterwards would say, "Thank you so much. My child really enjoyed that." And I would say, "Thank you. So did I," because there's something so magical about play. And I wish everybody would hold on to that inner child that loves to play inside of us. So tonight, our goal tonight is to share practical ways that you can connect with your grandchildren, whether they live close or far, no matter their ages, and specifically over the themes of the high holidays. And just a disclaimer is that I have not met your grandchildren. So everything I say, take with a grain of kosher salt. Have in mind that you know your grandkids best. And if I say something is for young kids, you might hear it and think, actually, my grandchild is a little older, but I think they would appreciate it. Or maybe if I say something, a certain activity, you might think, oh, I think, my grandchild does well with shorter, brief activities. I would have to abridge this in some way. So with that, let's begin. And the way I begin is saying, thank you so much for coming. And that is the end. Thank you. Now, that would be a really strange way for me to begin a session, but that is actually how we should begin by thinking about play. We should begin with the end in mind. And so what I encourage everyone who is using play-based learning or game-based learning is to think, what is my goal in this interaction? So for you personally, it might be to build a deeper relationship with your grandchild. It might be to keep them busy while their parents are not available. It might be to teach them a little bit about the high holidays. Perhaps they aren't in some kind of setting where they're able to experience Jewish education. So once we have our goal clear, then we can start, working backwards. Once we know what we're aiming towards, then we can think, what kind of activity would work really well? What kind of craft should we do, etc. So when I talk about the high holidays, specifically what I mean is the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year. And 10 days later, we have Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. And then those 10 days in between, the Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, the 10 days of repentance, or the 10 days of return. And many people think of the high holidays appropriately as solemn days, serious days. Just because they're solemn and serious doesn't mean that we can't play. And really, play is children's language. So I think play is always appropriate, especially during the high holidays. And so we're going to talk about how to bring play into the different names of Rosh Hashanah and what they represent, moving on to a new leaf and that concept of renewal, rebirth, then moving towards self-reflection and how we can do that in playful ways, and finally, sweetness and the five senses. So let's begin with the many names of Rosh Hashanah, and we'll start with the obvious one, Rosh Hashanah. So Rosh Hashanah literally translates to head of the year. And something I love about tradition is you can start any tradition anytime, and that becomes your tradition. So a few years back, my husband introduced me to gummy bears, specifically jellyfish. And this has become our Rosh Hashanah tradition. When we say the prayer of may our year be like the head of a fish, he gives out everybody a little jellyfish like this. He takes a big chomp. May our year be like the head of a fish. And we all watch him silently chew, and not like the tail. And then he pops in the second half. And that is something that he introduced when our oldest had teeth. And we've been doing it ever since. And that idea of creating these visuals, creating these traditions, these new memories, excuse me while I finish the little fish head in my mouth. And also, speaking of play, you might hear in the background, I've got little ones who are going to sleep right now and hopefully having sweet dreams of play. So there are two coexisting ideas that might seem paradoxical, but they can work together. So when a Jewish holiday is coming up, I 2 months before already start planting little seeds of excitement. I'm so excited. Here comes Rosh Hashanah. Do you know what is involved? Oh, I can't wait till we have our first apple and honey. I build it up. I hype it up. I'm building expectations and excitement. And the same time, whenever I have a new exciting activity to introduce, I always play that down. And I think both can happen at the same time, where we build up excitement for natural parts of the Jewish calendar, but we keep expectations low so that there can be that natural element of surprise. So you'll never hear me say to either students or a group of kids I'm working with or my own children, we're going to do the best activity right now, or we are going to play the most fun game in the world. I'll never say that. Instead, I'll say something casual like, oh, I was thinking we can try something out. Are you ready to try out a new activity? Kind of lay it out. Don't hype it up so much. That's what I try to do. And then I'm always exceeding expectations, because then when I show the kids, oh, a cool thing I want to try out, they say, wow, this is really cool. This is really fun. That paired with the excitement I'm building about the Jewish holidays coming up. So, head of the year, there are people out there who are really good at super creative crafts. Crafts is not my strong point, but I love what crafts do for a kid, that interactivity, that excitement. So what I try to do is come up with really simple crafts, easy prep, easy cleanup. Maybe the craft will last for a few minutes, maybe an hour, maybe a day or two, and that's okay. It doesn't need to become part of the fireplace mantle. So something that I do for Rosh Hashanah, young kids. So think early childhood, preschool. You can make this kind of hat any time of the year. Literally, you just take a piece of construction paper, split it in half vertically, staple it, and attach it to their head. And the fun part, the personalization, is what goes on this. So, for example, I drew a little fish that I can have my children or students color. They can add sequins or beads, and then I'll attach it to the hat, and they can wear it all day. After the presentation tomorrow, you'll be receiving a file with a bunch of different materials in it. And one of them is this, that you can use to make a very simple head of the year craft. You can use an apple at the front, you can use a fish, and this is something that can really be an interactive bonding experience. And if you're doing this over Zoom, you can send the file, have an adult print it, color it, and do it alongside them and narrate what you're doing out loud. Now I'm going to color this in. Let's share what we have so far. So this is a good activity, whether you're in person or long distance, and you can create a simple hat together. Now,
Sorry, can I jump in for one quick moment?
Please.
Excuse me for interrupting you. Can you explain to us the significance of the fish, please?
Yes. So a fish is actually a symbol of Rosh Hashanah in a few ways. There are some who have the tradition to actually serve a head of a fish on a plate. Now, that might be a little intense, a little too much, but still this concept of fish and the head of the fish, may our year be like the head, that goodness versus the tail. It's that concept. And also there's a tradition that we'll touch upon soon called tashlich, where we cast away things that we have done wrong or things that we could have done better. And we do it near fish. And there are so many interesting, I am not an expert on this, but I do know that we do associate this concept of doing better and hoping for a good year with fish. So fish has become almost like an icon for the high holidays. Please jump in at any point. I'm so ready for that. And so that would be great for young kids. Kids a little bit older, this concept of the head of the year, we make decisions every moment, every day. We're making decisions, and each decision leads to other decisions. We're kind of choosing our own journey. So if I can recommend a set of books that my family has just become obsessed with. This is not, I would say these are not Jewish books per se, but they are written by an Israeli couple, Ganit and Adir Levy, and they're called What Should Danny Do? We have the standard one, What Should Danny Do? And then there's Danny on Vacation, and there's Danny School Day. And basically, it's a choose your own adventure for kids. And every time Danny is faced with a choice, should I push my brother or should I try to use my words? It tells you what page to go to. And the book has 9 or 10 alternate endings, and it's a great discussion point which you can read over Zoom, in person, about the choices that we make. It's the head of the year. What choices will we make this year, and how will that lead to another? I had this memory when I was younger. I came into my room and there was a little post-it note on my bed. And I don't remember exactly what it said, but it was in my mother's handwriting, and there was some little poem. And then it led me to another post-it in the den, which led me to another one. It was probably simple to make, but I am remembering this years later, that little scavenger hunt that my mother sent me on. And this is something that you can do with kids, teens, all ages, some sort of scavenger hunt where one choice leads to the next. And you can have a post-it that says, you can have it on the fridge, and you're choosing, what would you like to do today? Would you like to, and you can give 2 options. If you'd like to get together with a friend, go find the post-it in the living room. That's how you would do it, let's say, in person. And virtually, you can also create some kind of numbered lists. So let's say number 1 has a little scenario. And if you want to choose choice A, go to question number 12. If you want to choose B, go to question number 16. And really, and this can lead into a discussion of what is life? What is a decision maybe that you made last year that if you would have chose the other option, how would that have played out? And kids love getting lost in that whole train of thought of those decisions and the consequences for good and bad and neutral. Every choice that we make has follow-up. So that was all under the category of Rosh Hashanah, head of the year. Rosh Hashanah also has another name, Yom Hadin, which translates to the day of judgment. Now, what is judgment? Judgment, I'll start with an activity you can do with older kids. I would like to challenge you in the chat to where it says meeting group chat, try to find my name. So you will send me a message. I'll show everyone right now. Hi, everyone. You can reply privately to me and tell us, without looking it up, what is the definition of the word judgment? So again, we're not looking this up. Don't go on dictionary.com. Don't open a real dictionary, but try to write an official definition for the word judgment. See if you can do this, just a little challenge, and send it so that only I can see it. And I'll give you about a minute or so for this. And as the answers are coming in, I'll give you one more suggestion. Make it sound like an official definition if you can, if you have those words at your disposal. Great. And of course, at any point, if anyone has questions, I am following the chat. So if I say something and you have a question about it, drop the question in the chat. Okay, so great. I have some answers coming in. Okay. You can stop. You can either keep the ideas coming, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you all a handful of them. One of them is the actual dictionary definition. Let's see if you can figure out which one is the actual definition. Okay, here we go. What is judgment? Oh, wow, they're coming in. We have a lot of Webster writers among us. Okay, judgment. Deciding what is right or just or not. Judgment. Making a decision about someone or something. Judgment. The determination of whether something is good or bad. Judgment. A decision of a court or judge. Judgment. My opinion of something. One of those that I just read was the actual dictionary definition. You can all now change to chat. You can write to everyone. Which of those do you think was the actual dictionary definition? Now, if I was playing this in real time, I would have them all written down on a card, perhaps, or I would copy and paste, and I would probably read the answers twice or three times. But this is one of my favorite games called Balderdash. And you can look up, there are lots of fun ways to play. You can use Balderdash with a person's name, a famous person, or someone who's not that famous, an important date in history, or a word. Now, we know the word judgment, but can we actually define it? Can we explain it? And this is great with elementary, middle school, high schoolers. Someone wrote, we used to call it Fictionary. I love that. So the actual dictionary definition is a decision of a court or a judge. There are actually so many definitions for judgment, but I picked one that wouldn't be too obvious. And this can be great because it can spring into discussions of what is it? What does it mean? Is it good to judge? Is it bad to judge? Is it ever okay to judge? What does it mean to judge? Now, with younger kids, I recently bought something that has become my new favorite high holiday prop. I saw they have it on Amazon and Walmart, but this weighted balance scales. So every Jewish month has a constellation and also like an icon, a symbol. The Jewish month of Tishrei, when Rosh Hashanah falls out on, part of it is in Tishrei, and Tishrei's constellation, the Mazal, the constellation, is of balance scales. So I love this concept of do the actions that we do in life, where would they kind of weigh? Is one good deed bigger than others? What would that look like? And why is this scale representative of Rosh Hashanah? And is there something that someone could do that could be so bad that even if they do 100 good things, it can't even out? And what about the opposite? And these kinds of discussions with an actual visual can really bring these things to light and also to life. So that was Yom Hadin, the Day of Judgment. Rosh Hashanah also has another name, and that is Yom Harat Olam, the birthday of the world. Kids love birthdays. My 5.5-year-old, or I should update it, my 5.75-year-old has been discussing his upcoming birthday for months. He likes to know how many months it is, how many weeks, how many minutes. I'm constantly doing calculations. And how many minutes is my birthday from tomorrow? Okay, hang on. And I look it up. Birthdays, such an exciting, important topic for kids. So I love this idea of creating a birthday party, regular birthday party, right? We have our props, we have our maybe balloons, maybe confetti, maybe birthday hats included in the packet that I will send to you afterwards. You can make a little birthday crown for the world, and you would cut out each of these, and you can do it. And if you're doing it long distance, you can email the file and have a grandchild fill it out alongside you, and you wear it, and you do birthday party activities. So maybe you would do pass the parcel, or pin the honey on the apple, pin the bee on the hive. And with older kids, I love playing minute to win it games. In minute to win it games, you have 1 minute to try to do one task, and it's a little bit of a race. Who can dice more apples? Be careful with that one. Or who can squeeze a full honey dish into the bowl how much honey can you do in 1 minute? These kinds of things. And there are so many resources online and to create such kind of minute to win it. But after you do the fun and games of the birthday, perhaps you can talk about what does it mean that the world is a year older? Because Rosh Hashanah is that the mark of creation. It's the Jewish New Year. And just like at a birthday, when we blow out the candles, we make a wish, what wishes do we have for this year, for our world? What are we hoping for the world? So kind of taking the fun and games of a birthday and infusing a little bit of meaning and high holidays can be really fun. Now, if you want to get rid of all that prep and make it a little simpler, you can share with your grandchild, I'm actually in charge of making a birthday party for someone in my neighborhood. You could kind of have this little surprise discussion. What do you think we should do for it? And then you might say, who do you think it's for? And kind of build up in that interesting dialogue. It's actually the world's birthday that's coming up. What do you think the world wants for her birthday, or however you want to phrase it? So that is Yom Haratz Olam. Another name that Rosh Hashanah goes by is Yom Teruah, the day of blowing, and in brackets, the day of blowing shofar. And the shofar is also, I love that Rosh Hashanah has so many of these icons. We have the fish, the apple, the honey, the bee, the pomegranate, and the shofar is a huge one. So with young kids, I love the idea of making a shofar. And as I said, I am an artist. I'm a digital artist. I studied computer art and digital illustration at FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology. I love art, but I do get intimidated by, as I mentioned before, making complicated crafts. So I always keep it simple. Here is a shofar I made with my own kids. I am proud of its ugliness. I think it's great. The kids had such a good time making it, and it's so simple and so affordable. So all I did was I got these cheap trumpet horns, took one out, and I folded it in two places. So I folded it here, and then I taped it just so that it would have that shape. And then I kind of taped it over here. And then we just covered it in glue. Great, fun, tactile, put on some high holiday music. This also is a great digital, virtual activity. You can send these are very cheap. I can send you the link after, but you can get these on Amazon, send it to your grandchild, send it to you, and do it together alongside crafts. So cover it, you can have an adult helping them, cover it with glue, and then tissue paper. I got brown tissue paper, fold it up into little balls and stick it all over. And sometimes perfectionism gets better, it interferes with the fun of making crafts, but I love the idea of embracing the mess. Have fun with it. Just go all the way. And after we put our tissue paper, we took some tape to kind of hold it together, and it really blows. So this is a fun, simple craft that you can do with young kids, as young as 2 even, up through maybe 8, 9, 10, and you can add different elements to, if you want to make it a little bit more challenging, if you want to dip it in paint afterwards or add little items to it. And other playful shofar activities you can do is, this game, I think it used to be called Simon. This is like a knockoff brand where when you play it, like one little circle will light up beep, and then you hit it, and then it will go beep, boop, and then you hit beep, boop, and it's like a memory game. You're trying to remember the order. So I like playing that with kids with shofar sounds. So first I teach them the sounds, and you can look this up on YouTube or on Google. We have Tekiah is toot, and then there's Shavarim, doot, 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 and Teruah, doot, 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 doot. And so kind of like the game, I'm going on a picnic and I'm going to bring, we play that with shofar sounds. The first person picks a sound, Tekiah, doot, and the next person, so it might be if you're just playing with one grandchild, then it's your turn. And you can say, Tekiah, doot, Tekiah, doot. Now it goes back to the grandchild who adds on a new sound, and you build and build and build and build, and you're working on memory, and you're working on creativity, and you're working on the sounds of the shofar. It's becoming familiar to them, and it's a fun, interactive idea. Let's move on to the final nickname before we move on to our next section. Rosh Hashanah is also called Yom HaZikaron, the day of remembrance. What is memory? So another prop here I have. This is my little book puppet, right? Yeah. And I love this idea. It's a very complex idea, a very deep idea that God has this book. And in this book, all of our deeds are recorded, and our upcoming year, different blessings for us are recorded in this book. What is that book? The book of life. And so if you feel like your grandchild is ready to have such discussions, but in a very child-friendly way, I like having a book puppet. And another thing you can do is together create a memory box, a time capsule. Look back at your year together. What are some memories? Or just you can help your grandchild create their own memory box. What are some memories, highlights, challenges, things that have come up through the year? And how can you represent that in an item, an object, a drawing, a picture? And looking at your year in a box can be very exciting and rewarding and tactile for kids. A game I like to play with memory is, do you remember when? And so I'll sit with somebody, let's say, and someone in my life. So let's say your grandchild, and I'll write down 10 memories, and only 7 of them happened and 3 of them didn't. And then it could be fun sharing them. Okay, which one of these did not happen? And you can look back at your whole, lives together. You can do the past year, but which memories are true, which memories are not. And another activity that can be very meaningful is creating a photo book together using Shutterfly.com or Snapfish.com, and using drag and drop. And kids, I would say elementary, middle, and high, this will come naturally to them, and it's really fun to share in those memories and discussions as you create a book. So that closes our chapter on the many names of Rosh Hashanah. I'm just quickly... Oh, look at that. My mother made gefilte fish starting from a carp swimming in our tub. I love that. I love the stories that stick and that we hold on to forever. Again, if anyone has any questions, you can always drop them in the chat, and I can come up to it and answer it at a pause. Okay, so our next chapter is a new leaf, the concept of rebirth and renewal, a fresh slate. So I'm going to briefly share my screen to show how I like to explain the concept of teshuvah. There we go. To kids. Kids are digital natives. So they don't necessarily understand the concept of editing, right? Film, cutting a piece of film and splicing it together. But they can understand that moment when you send a message and you realize, I don't want to send that before the other person reads it. You can tap it and unsend that message. Or if you're typing at a computer and you write something and you want to take it away, you want to undo that, hitting Command Z, Control Z, or sometimes using a phone, you can shake it to undo. This concept of teshuvah, which literally translates to returning, but that idea of repenting, undoing what we want to undo. And I like to try to think of terms, ways to explain it to kids in languages, in a language that they'll understand. One more that I wanted to share is I like this idea of what a chait means. So a chait, the word for sin, I don't like the word sin. I would say sin is actually a very Christian understanding of the word chait, which really means missing the mark. And I love having discussions with kids of all ages. What happens when we realize that we made a mistake? We missed the mark. And going through those steps with young kids, you can have a little puppet show, grab, the stuffed animals, and have your grandchild help you fill in the story. What mistake did little Barry make? And what might Barry say if Barry feels bad about it? And How can Barry do better? So that idea of using terms and concepts that they can understand to explain these very deep and layered concepts. Okay, now another idea that I love exploring with kids is what I mentioned before, tashlich, which literally translates to casting away. This beautiful Jewish tradition to go to a body of water and to hope for a better year and to cast away the things that we did that maybe weren't our best. So one way you can do this with young kids, virtually or in person, is take a little bowl of water. Here's my body of water. And take a paper towel and maybe write down with a marker, what is something that I am not so proud of? So I'll write, didn't share. I didn't share. Maybe I didn't share as well as I could have. And then we can take this paper towel with the marker and put it in the water. And you can watch when you leave it in there how the words slowly start to disappear. Let it hang out there a little bit. But that is kind of what we're hoping with when we do tashlich, sending away what we want. And other ways you can do that is crumpling up a piece of paper, and sometimes people do activities with balloons. Personally, I'm not such a fan because I don't think it's very good for the environment, but thinking of environment friendly ways to display to a child, whatever their age is, that we don't have to hold on to our weaknesses. We can strengthen ourselves. We can let go of the things that we feel bad about. Another thing that I like to do with young kids is I have something called a Yom Kippur die. This also I'll send to you after. But a very serious day like Yom Kippur, as I mentioned before, the Day of Atonement, can be made fun with a little bit of play. But it's a 6-sided die, and you throw it. You could do this virtually or in person, and it lands on practice saying sorry, using little puppets to, as I mentioned before, make a little scene, make a little skit, or do a mitzvah. What is a good deed we can do together? Can we give tzedakah? Can we thank somebody? Say a prayer, act out the story of Jonah in a kid-appropriate way. Now, getting a little older, let's say moving to the elementary school age, middle school, even high school, 2 concepts that I love doing to help with this being this concept of renewing and rebirth. One of them is what I call Yom Kipologies. So I will share with you now. It's a simple game to make. It is on my website, the printable version, but you can also easily make your own. So first, you would explain to your grandchild or your grandchildren, what does a proper apology look like? I will show my screen for a moment. So apologies, right? Adding a little ease to apologies. So number 1, be specific about what you're apologizing for. Number 2, explain why it was wrong or hurtful. Number 3, ask for forgiveness. And number 4, see if there's anything else you can do to make things better. Now let's practice with a little bit of silliness. Silliness plus meaning equals memorable learning. So here I have a player card guide, and I made 4 decks of cards. The green deck, the first deck, says it's time to apologize to. So I have your hairstylist, or your distant relative, or someone in your family. The next pile says so apologize, let's say, apologize to your hairstylist for something you posted online involving a tennis racket. And for fun, you have to follow a certain rule. So let's say it has to rhyme. So now I invite you in the chat to create a Yom Kipology and I'll repeat what we have so far. We have apologize to your hairstylist for something you posted online involving a tennis racket, and your apology has to rhyme. So you can all take a moment to write that little poem. And if you're feeling brave, you can share it in the chat.
Can you give us an example,
And
Sari?
yes, I could. I might say here, if it's okay, I have a great example here that I love. Let's say you pick apologize to your teacher for something you did by mistake involving a potato, and the rule is make it a tongue twister. So the one I wrote for that was, Professor Puck, my purple pot of pureed potatoes poured on your pants. Professor, please pardon me. I'll pay for the price of the pants. So I admitted what I'm doing, and I'm saying how I'm going to make it better. So here for a hairstylist, you know what? I'll do it alongside you. If you beat me to it, great, share in the chat. But I'm going to right now. I've never done this one before. I'm going to write an apology to my hairstylist for something I posted online involving a tennis racket. I'm so sorry I made your racket broke when I made it go up in smoke. I'm sorry for posting. You made my hair look like a tennis racket. I didn't mean to hurt you. If I lose your friendship, I just can't hack it. Great. And the idea here really isn't to have the best poem, the best tongue twister, but it's to get very comfortable making these apologies. Great. Okay. Another idea that I like doing with older children or teens is the idea of, magnetic poetry. So you can make Yom Kipologies poetry, but making a bunch of words, life, like, listen, look, stop, strength, and let's say 100 words, include a bunch of words about renewal, sorry, forgiveness, and making little poems, writing little sorry notes, and to practice that idea of cleaning your slate, apologizing. We have, all right, let's move a little quickly further along to our next chapter, which is self-reflection, looking back and seeing how we can do better. Something that I love doing also with all different ages, and this also will be included in the file that we share with you, sweet assessments. So I have here 10 statements. This past year, I treated others with respect. This past year, I actively listened to those around me, and you can use little colorful candies, little M&Ms to mark off how much do you agree. So you can do this alongside your grandchild and share together. And there's really beautiful bonding that happens when we are open about our own challenges and our own growth. And we don't, pretend that we have it all together. We all make mistakes. We are human. So you would use, let's say, red for strongly agree, orange for somewhat agree. And after you fill out your sweet assessment, you could lick it all up and enjoy it. Another way you can work on reflection is a great website that I'll share with you called Do You 10Q. It's a Jewish website, and it has 10 days of questions, one each day during the 10 days of repentance, the Aseret Yemei Teshuvah. Really thought-provoking questions. This is good for middle schoolers and older. Also good personally. I love to do it every year. It asks you a question, and then after the 10 days, it stores it in a vault where you can't access it until the next year. It gives it back to you. Also, there's a great tradition of writing high holiday cards. Well, what if you can add a creative twist to it? So something that kids love doing is secret codes. So this will also be included, an alphabet code. And you can decide, you can make it simple, like every A will be Z, B will be Y, etc. Or you can be random. A will be J, B will be M, and you can write each other Happy New Year cards in code, but make sure to include a little decoder with it. And that's really, really fun for kids to do. Kids love puzzles and mystery and figuring out different ways to write things. I will just share my slide again, and then we'll take questions soon. But here are some, as Terry mentioned in the beginning, I love making mystery games. And so I happen to do these all the time, but I have, instead of Morse code, I made mezuzah code with stars and Torah scrolls. Or you can make a cipher wheel. That's the green one in the middle, where you have 2 circles, and you can print these online. And you would send the 2 circles to your grandchild. You could do it in snail mail or digitally, and tell them where to line up. So you might say A equals light bulb. So then when they line it up, they'll be able to read your secret code. There's an infinite amount of different codes you can do to either write each other high holiday cards or together write one to send to someone. And I even do this with young kids. If you can break it down for them and write a simple card together, this can be really fun. And once you're making high holiday cards, I love the idea of playing with language, being punny. So these are some examples of Jewish concepts. I need you in my life for a challah, or you light me up. What are some Jewish concepts, and how can we add a little bit of punniness to them? And I think we can never joke around too much, never be too playful. In fact, our sages played a lot with language. The reason many people have the tradition to have carrots on Rosh Hashanah is because if you take the word in Yiddish or Hebrew of carrot, it sounds like the word for this. They were playing with language. Our sages were. We can do that too. And I love asking kids to come up with their own Jewish foods that we can add to our Rosh Hashanah tradition. Let me share a few more with you right now. For example, may you come across many kind human beings this year. Maybe we should serve beans. Or the bottom one, may you always say, I feel good from my head to my toes. You'd be surprised. Kids are so good at this. They can come up with the most far-fetched foods and puns. How can you take an orange? How can you take a pickle? How can you take a strawberry and turn it into a blessing? What kind of blessings do we want to give each other? And we can never have too many blessings. So again, this stems from the already existing tradition to serve foods, beets and leeks, and there are so many foods that traditionally Jewish people have been eating for years on Rosh Hashanah because of wordplay. So let's add to that fun.
Sorry, will you be sharing that template with us, those cards?
Sure.
No, wait, no. Is it a purchased product? I don't want to ask you to give away anything free that fine. Is for.
Thank you. These are just 6 images. I'm happy to add that in. I do have a full set of 30 that is on my site for sale, but I'm happy to share these 6 with you. And okay, so I have a few more concepts, and then I want to make sure we stop and have questions. So the idea of sweetness, the 5 senses. So kids love sweet activities, literally sweet activities, playing with figuring out on our tongue. Can we taste all parts of our tongue? If we put something sweetness, take a little bit of honey, can all parts of your tongue taste it? What about that? There's an age-old science statement that there are different sections of the tongue, but maybe that has been debunked. Maybe our whole tongue has all different kinds. So playing with sweetness in that way. Also, creating sensory bins and bottles. So included in what I'll be sending you is a sheet that if you print, it will be in color, but if you print it double-sided, you can cut out the little apple, the little honey jar, and if you have a laminating machine, even better, but you don't need it. What I did was I took a bottle and I filled it with rice. Inside are 10 hidden Rosh Hashanah images. See, there, we have a pomegranate there, and they're all hiding in here. And basically, it's hide and seek that a kid can hold and play with and search through. And there are certain kids who are extra sensory and they love playing and touching and moving. And this could be great for them. If you want to go bigger, you can do a sensory bin, a whole bin filled with things that they can sift through and play with and touch. And also, there are some great resources online to look up how to create a sensory bin or bottle. I think we are at a good point. If anyone has questions, we can stop at. But I want to give a few more props. This is a great thing that kids love. A few dollars. I got a pack of 30. You can write a high holiday card in this. It doesn't show up unless you turn the little light on. It's like invisible ink with a light. So cool for kids. You can send them a note and include the little pen or write notes to each other and watch the images appear.
What's that called? What's that pen called? Do you know?
I can send you the direct link. It's called like invisible ink pen, something like that, with a light. But I guess in conclusion, for now, because I want to make sure we have time for your questions. In conclusion, to bring it all together, how can we bring humor, play, imagination? These are things that kids know how to do innately. We're all born with the ability to play, and we don't need to teach kids how to play along. They will figure it out. And so think about how we can, what our goal is. That's number one, right? We begin with the end. We begin with the end in mind. We can create excitement, connection over the holidays. Think of a little activity you can do. What is our goal? How can we get there? Keep our expectations low. Be flexible. Go with the flow. I always like to end a game before it peaks. So I like to leave the kids saying, no, can we play more? That's a good thing. Versus if you wait till it dies out, they might not have that really good taste at the end. So say, you know what, that's good for now. Maybe we'll do it again in the future. And before it peaks, I like to aim for challenging. I have a 5 and 3/4 year old. I often do my games with him for 8-year-olds, 10, and I try to think of how can I support him that he'll understand it. So have fun with that, and I wish us all a year filled with so many reasons to play and be joyous and taste the sweetness. And now I'd love if anyone has questions.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, that was like ridiculously busy and fun and too much joy. So you shared so much with us. I do want to assure our friends who've joined us that tomorrow we will send you the recording. We will send it to everybody who registered because we know some people couldn't make it, and that way you can rewatch. And we'll send you the packet of materials, some of which Sari has shared. So if anybody would like to, you can just go ahead, unmute yourself, ask your question. If you prefer to raise your Zoom hand, go for it. This is we've got 5 minutes or so before we say goodbye. So we'd also love to hear from you what you have done with your grandchildren that has been fun for Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. Feel free to unmute, just speak out. We welcome.
One thing I've done with my kids are a little older now, and I'm going to be on the professional end in a minute, but I put their artwork up every year from years past. And as they get older, they get a real kick out of their art being up for that holiday. So it's reintroducing and rebringing stuff back again. And it can be done, obviously virtually if you're not with them, or in person if they're running around you, but they think it's a huge kick to have their artwork displayed as if it's super important.
on exhibit at the museum. I love that.
Bev. Yeah.
With my grandchildren, we slice up apples. We have little bowls of honey in front of everybody's place, and we go around the table and we dip the honey and we say something that's sweet in our lives that we want to continue to be sweet in our lives and eat.
Yum.
In my house,
Done this. Oh, go ahead.
my grands have enjoyed hearing stories about the holidays, so we always start off with one of the adults telling a very brief synopsis story of the holiday. And then my 13-year-old decided that we should go around the table. Each person gets 1 minute and adds part of the story as we go around the table, which is a lot of fun and very funny at the end.
Lovely.
I haven't done this in the past. We've done apples and honey, but I have a 2.5-year-old grandson, and I can envision having little bowls of chocolate chips and all kinds of things that would stick in the honey, and he can decorate his own apple and then, of course, eat it.
Yum.
We fortunately live near a little lake that's part of a development where it's an artificial lake that they made. And we always do tashlich, and we take breadcrumbs and we throw the breadcrumbs in the net. They pack this lake with fish. And so the fish come and eat them. And I think I always was told that the fish don't have eyelids. So their eyes are open all the time, so they know your deeds. And so we always, and then I have a little service. I'm a Jewish educator. I have a little service that we do, and everybody reads a part. And we've been doing this since my granddaughter lives here. My other grandchild lives in Los Angeles. I'm located in Maryland. And they, now that she reads, she can read some of the service. And we have two different I found a better version last year that I liked. And we use that one now. So I'm always looking for new versions of Tashlich. That's a big thing. And then we always have that, and we'll have a little snack or something outside, hopefully when the weather's nice. And you do it on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, unless it's Shabbat. I don't know if you, some people might or might not know that. So
Lovely.
yeah.
Lovely.
Your synagogue, some of them do it too, I'm sure. Synagogue you go to, if you go to a synagogue, you can go with the synagogue or group. So.
May I just, as we sign off, I just want to share one thing that I did. As I mentioned earlier, I work with my 10-year-old grandchild on Zoom. She's a little private Hebrew school. And I wanted to get her a shofar because I want to surprise the family at Rosh Hashanah dinner. So I called up Israel Bookshop in Brookline, and I spoke to somebody there, Miriam, and she was very helpful. She said she'll choose me a beautiful shofar, and she'll test it to be sure it works. So I paid, don't ask, $75 plus shipping. That's okay. And she got it, and we were working on Zoom, and she tried to blow it and could not. So earlier I put a link in chat where a friend sent me how to blow a shofar. You kind of make a raspberry with your lips. And while we were on this afternoon earlier, she managed to blow it. It was like an awful sound, but okay. We were big cheers and applause. And just a thought that I think it's going to really please our Rosh Hashanah guests and family. And we are actually going to sign off with all our huge, huge thanks and gratitude to you, Sari, and to all our friends for joining us tonight. We invite the professionals from organizations who are going to stay on for the talk back, in which all we're going to do is talk about how to take these ideas and translate them into a communal setting. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your presence, and we wish you Shana Tova U'Metuka, and we look forward to seeing you at future JGN events.